Hello and welcome to another video of my opening series, Mastering the Basics and how to play against a Sicilian. We took some dives into the open Sicilian and how to play in the English attack. On today's video, we're gonna talk about the Sveshnikov Systems, in which case you are not supposed to play the English attack. You have to adjust to a different type of play that is more castle shore related and more solid. In the Sveshnikov Systems, there's one line specifically that's the most popular throughout the history of chess, and that is called the Pelikan, or like many people call it, the Sveshnikov as well. And the Sveshnikov system starts by basically anything that after you open Sicilian, the c takes d relates to the quick move e5. Some people might play e5 now, some people might play knight f6, knight c3, and e5. All of these are the Sveshnikov systems. So today we're gonna cover what's called the Pelikan, that turns out to be after this position is accomplished. So how to play against this? Well, you cannot really long castle in these type of positions because you are going to be attacked very quickly. Your knight will retreat and the position becomes very, very uncomfortable. So we have to approach this in a different way, and we are actually going to be castling short, and we're gonna accomplish that by making sure we control the square on d5. But before we go into the details on how to play starting from this position, I wanted to show you how many positions can actually transpose and how many ways you can transpose into this same position. It's important that you know these transpositions so you don't get confused right out of the opening. So we saw this one where basically black started with knight c6 and then white plays d4, c takes d, knight takes pawn, attack the pawn, you defend the pawn as usual like any other open Sicilian, and then black now played e5, attacking the knight. You have to move the knight to b5. One of the conditions for that is that obviously there's no pawn on a6, so we can do that. Second condition is that you're actually threatening to go knight d6. That's another one. Black can go d6. And now we're gonna play the move bishop g5. So I want you to remember this position because we're gonna go back again and we're gonna get to the same position but in a different way. Now if we back up here to this position with knight c3, black can also play the move pawn e6. So it seems like we're doing something different. We are going to talk about this in another line, in another case where basically white is gonna go knight db5, and here black has many moves that are possible. One of them being bishop c5 is actually very popular on online chess, and there's also the bishop b4 as well. But again, this is out of the scope of this video. I wanted to focus on the more difficult task here, which is try to find something good to play against the Pelikan. And the best move for black here is actually to play the move pawn d6. All of these moves here are considered inaccuracies and they're considered good for white. So black will go d6 is the most likely approach you're gonna find, and then here white goes bishop f4, attacking this pawn, and there is really no way to defend that pawn. Black is gonna have to play e5, and that is because if black plays knight e5, white has this incredible move queen d4, and there is no way to stop the bomb tactic. Knight takes d6 followed by bishop takes e5. So here white wins a pawn and the game is over basically, at least technically, no? Now, after bishop f4, black has to play e5, and take a look at this. We are back into the same position that we had originally in the pure Pelikan. We started almost like a Paulsen, and we got also into Pelikan. So you need to know these transpositions because many times you can get into this exact same position from like 5 or 6 different ways. For example, what if I start like a Paulsen? My opponent started like a Paulsen, and he decides that after e6 he just wants to make sure that he gets the Pelikan. So you can go d4 like we said we would, knight f6, I go knight c3, and guess what? Boom, we're back to the same position again. So how to get to here does not matter as long as you understand that the move here is knight db5, then followed by d6 and so on, bishop f4, e5 like we did before. Now how about if black says, you know what, I'm actually gonna go knight c6, d4. I'm not going to actually attack this pawn. They could also do another Sveshnikov setup, or another Sveshnikov variation setup, which is e5. And in this case, white also have to go knight b5. Notice the two conditions that we mentioned, which is no pawn on a6, and there's also the check on d6. There's another big detail here, is that basically If you go knight b3 here, it's a big mistake because black will go knight f6, knight c3, and here black has this monster, super annoying pin that I cannot tell you how many of my students fall for this. It's unbelievable. It's actually a very simple move because they think they're getting into a Najdorf. They think they're getting into some sort of scotch, which we like to play knight b3 a lot. It's not the same because this bishop is still able to pin that knight. And this position is now maybe even better for black. Targeting the pawn, getting d5, and so on. So you need to understand the value of this knight b5. Now, what are you gonna play here? Well, the best move is again d6. And again, we're gonna go over all the lines in the other videos a little more longer, where we're gonna talk about knight d6 checks, which is another one. We're gonna separate maybe some of this too. After d6, white will go knight c3, and here black can also play a6 and kick you first. But basically, as soon as this move gets done, you can also say that knight f6 is possible here. Take a look at what happened. Well, I'm gonna go bishop g5, and we're back to the Pelikan. So we started in a weird way. We got to the same position. What if black plays a6, kick us, and then goes here, and they go here, and they go here, and then here black knight f6? Well, actually, this is also gonna be a transposition. We're gonna see this happen again in the Pelikan, on the way that this game went. So now that you know more or less all the different ways that you can actually get into a Pelikan, let's actually get into a Pelikan and then onto the main way to get into a Pelikan, the fastest way, which is the way that I showed you from the beginning. And we're gonna see the actual line that I'm recommending you to play. So once you get here, this move is extremely powerful because you're actually taking the knight, you're pinning the knight, and you're threatening knight d5, which is completely winning for white. So if I go bishop b7, for example, I just take you, you're getting destroyed. You cannot take back with the bishop, you have to take back with the pawn, and the holes here are just too much for black to handle. Very bad position. I got this coming, you got king issues everywhere you go. Very tough for black. So the best move here is to kick right away, and here we're gonna go back. Now black has to do something, otherwise I will go knight c4 and I will go knight e3. So black plays this move b5 that also threatens a annoying fork. That's why here we have to play the move knight d5. Now there's also other lines that are also very good on theoretical. Everything here has been played for over 50 years. I mean, this is nothing new. Knight d5, bishop e7 is the best move. I'm only gonna mention one line that's possible that I myself played it many times with black. If I check, the easiest way to play against this is to go bishop d2, force the queen trade. Now, if you want to make a draw, well, you can just go back. But if you want to play for a win, the easiest way to go is bishop d3. I'm just gonna leave it there. Now, slightly better for white because after this, and this, you got c4. White is doing really well. Slightly better for white. Very comfortable. It's not supposed to be playable for black. That's why people play the best line, which is bishop b7, bishop takes f6, bishop takes f6. You can actually find many famous games starting on this position, starting with c3, g3, bishop e2. Almost everything has been played in this position. But my favorite move and the favorite line that I'm going to show you guys is the move pawn c4. As you can see, this game is between two 2300 FIDE, but it's not FIDE, it's email rating, which are considered by this year 2020 are considered like super GMs. Like I would say like 2700 level, because computers at this year are already very strong. What I liked about the way they play here is that it was very basic, very easy to follow, and there were actually no human games on this position, which I'm very surprised. So, but c4 is been played many times. This is the way that they play later. But what is the power of c4? Well, the first thing is that, one of the problems of this line is that I want to bring my knight back into the game. Either by you taking me and I take you, and I just brought the knight back in the game, or I can do what happened in the game, which is the best move, is b4. It's the only move. Any other move is already not very good for black. Black has to play b4. Now we got to go knight c2. Most people here are going to protect this pawn with either rook b8 or a5, but a lot of the time, this also transposes. Sometimes you go rook b8, but you end up playing a5 later because that pawn will be in need of a defender. So black will play a5. And here comes the plan that I like the most, and is that we need to develop this bishop and we want a castle. We also need to control the square d5. So we give up the bishop for the knight. This is the main goal of the Pelikan, or how to play against the Pelikan. Getting rid of that knight, because that knight will be a trade-off for this one. Then it will be a trade-off for this one. Suddenly we run out of pieces that we can put, minor pieces that we can put on the center to control that d5 square that we have here. This is what's giving us the advantage. This is what keeps the slightly edge for white. We cannot lose that, so that's why we got rid of that knight. Even though we're giving away a bishop, that black bishop is actually really bad in this position because the best thing they can do is stay on this diagonal. That's not really doing anything. It's pointing to some sort of blank, right? But then we do need to put that bishop somewhere. Now, we can put it here. There are many, many games, so you can just put it here. But the easiest one and the strongest one is by far pawn g3. My favorite move here. And the plan is extremely simple. We're just going bishop g2. We're going to castle. And we're going to put my queen on d3. We're going to put a rook on d1. We're going to target that weak pawn on d6. We talked about semi-open files. Again, check it out. Check that video that I made on semi-open files, open files, and files. Well, you should always put your rooks on those places. This pawn might go here just to lock it up and not give him anything. And the position becomes extremely easy because then that pawn will be a weakness forever. So let's keep going. So black played castle. This is all extremely simple and probably the best move black and white can play for the next 5-10 moves. We're not going to finish the game, but you can find it if you want. Black plays bishop g5. Also a really good move because notice one thing. You cannot move the queen. So if you want to put this queen, let's say here, I probably would just take, even though it's a bad bishop, I would just really want to have those pawns. Plus also here, I'm just taking a pawn. But just as an example of how bad this moving the queen can be if you don't move the bishop. So black plays the best move. Bishop g5. Now white obviously castles. There's just easy. I'm just continuing my developing so that now I'm ready to coordinate. I am ready to put pressure on that d pawn. But for that, again, I need to keep the d file open. I cannot close the d file, right? So make sure you keep that in mind. So when this trade is offered, my first question is that should I let, let's say, this pawn take that? Let's say, what is black trying to do to offer me a trade? I could take the knight, that's totally fine. Or I can wait for them to take me. But in which piece am I going to take? So white played b3 in this case. Against knight takes d5, which is what happened in the game. What do you think is the best move on the strategy side of the game? You can take with the queen. You can take with the e pawn. You can take with the c pawn. Right here, this is a strategy question that's based on semi-open files. You have a weak pawn on the d file. So how do you take? With the queen or with the pawns? You can pretty much say now that this is a mistake. This is a mistake because it closes the file of the queen, or it closes the file with your rooks are going to put pressure on the weak pawn. So the only move here by far is queen takes d5, especially if you want to keep an advantage. So this is exactly what happened in the game. Now this only helps us a little bit because I was actually going to do the same thing. So for example, if you go bishop e6, I would take your knight. Because again, I don't want to go queen d3. This is the dream for black, right? Forcing a trade on the knight on d5, force you to take with the c or the e pawn, close the file where the weakness is. Now black is totally fine. There's really nothing for you here anymore. You lost the threat. You lost the weakness. The file got closed. You no longer have attacking chances on that pawn. So in a case like this, what could be the best move here? Well, if black is trying to take me and I cannot take back with a piece, and I want to keep that file, well, let's take one of those pieces. Now, if I was not able to take this knight, I could simply go knight e3. I would actually retreat. I'd rather do that than close the file. Another thing that I wanted to mention is the power of this knight. That it seems like it's not doing anything here, but it is doing a lot because it is also controlling the other knight from jumping on d4. That helps us because then when we go queen d3 and rook d1, or queen d3 and rook fd1, either one of the rooks is fine. I'd rather do this one because there's nothing for this one here, and maybe here we do have an f4 move later. The power is this, that there are no pieces that can be on the way of the d pawn. If he puts a knight on d4, we cannot take it. It will be tough to break, right? So bishop, so knight e7, and now we go here, and the moment that this is a threat, queen takes, we just go back, and notice again, we're just doing the same thing. Now I wanted to show you here a couple more moves. The next one is extremely important, and this is a move that you're actually going to do a lot in these sort of positions. Either you go h4 or you go f4. f4 is a little more risky because it opens up the diagonal for the bishop. I don't like it very much. So the easiest one is h4, and this move is basically asking the bishop, where do you want to play? That bishop is technically kind of overloaded. It is placed here, looking good. That bishop also could serve as a defender when the bishop comes back to e7. Now, if you want to keep the bishop on e7, that's fine, but then your bishop is never going to play. It's gonna be behind the pawns, right, all the time. It's also not gonna have the option of taking my knight anymore. If I jump my knight to e3, then to d5 or f5. So when you play the move h4, you're asking the bishop, do you want to keep the bishop here? Which, by the way, will make that bishop very nice for against this knight and maybe some sort of diagonal, but it will remove the bishop from any future defense of that pawn. And that's a big deal in this position because it is a weakness. Somebody will have to protect that pawn. Now I can think about, you know, doubling, tripling, putting both rooks on that file and trying to put pressure on the weak pawn on d6. But here black actually chose to go back to d8, which is a very awesome plan, but very difficult for anybody to do. And then white just plays rook d1, attacks the pawn on d6, the weakness that we've been talking about all the time. And then now comes another big plan, and we're gonna stop here after this move, because we basically accomplished the main part of the why I like this position. You can feel it, you can see it, that white is the one with the game, white is the one with the play. White has a very easy to play position where you got that control of d5, control of f5, you have this move h5, h6 maybe even. But there's one more plan here. We also have the doubling of the rooks, which is great too. We have one more plan to do though. That's huge. It's beautiful here. And that is king h2. Bang. And that's what this guy did too. King h2. Take a guess why this is the move. Well, black has bishop pair, number one. When you have bishop pair, the concept says that you should trade them. So the offering of that bishop trade with bishop will be the follow-up here. After you play bishop h3, you can offer the bishop trade, get rid of the good bishop for black. One concept we haven't talked about. It's the good bishop and bad bishop. This is the bad bishop because of the pawn structure being all black, and this is the good bishop of the pawn structure being white. So I'm trying to trade that bishop either by taking, maybe taking. Yeah, that will improve a little bit black's pawn structure, so I would think about it. But I will be extremely happy if I offer the bishop trade and you take me back. That would be amazing, because then I will fully control the knight on d5. So in a couple of moves, this actually happens. Well, he played knight 3 first, which is an optional. You could have done this first, and then boom, bishop h3. This game actually ended in a draw, but this is against two basically super strong GMs playing all the best move, and it's crazy. I believe this position is actually very difficult for white. I played it myself plenty of times with great results, and it just feels very comfortable. So if you want to have a good tool, a good fighting ground against one of the most difficult Sicilians, the Pelikan, played by pretty much all world champions, including Kasparov, Kramnik, and so on. And even today, Gukesh. Well, Gukesh, everybody plays the Pelikan. It's the best. Everybody gets afraid of the Pelikan. I think this is a good fighting tool for you to play against the Pelikan. So hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will talk more in the next video about the different Sveshnikov types, not just the Pelikan. The Pelikan will be covered on this video only, but the other ones are tricky, and the different orders where you can actually get into them. And I'll see you in the next time. Bye-bye.